Moin and welcome to Dolllynx! With this video we're going to open up a new chapter on this channel and finally dive into the world of BJDs. If you never heard of that, BJD stands for ball jointed doll, usually made out of resin and in various sizes. The most common categories are SD, which are the biggest, with around 70 centimeters I guess, MSD, with around 40 centimeters, and YOSD, which are the smallest, but usually child-looking dolls. I'm not an expert by far, and everything I tell you now is what I've learned so far. I decided for myself that I like the MSD size the most, because it's not that huge, but still adult-looking. So with this video, I want to show you my very first ball-jointed doll that I ordered last year in December. Yes, it takes quite a while for these dolls to arrive since production starts when you order. But before we jump into the project, there's someone I want to mention first. Since these dolls are pretty expensive, I did some research before ordering one, of course, and got to know some lovely people who are way longer in this hobby than me. One of them is LENA from Kosomolski Dolls. Some of you might know her already from YouTube or Instagram, but if not, please consider visiting her page and leave some love. She has some great knowledge that she is always willing to share, and she helped me so much with my insecurities regarding these precious dolls. I'm really happy to consider her as my friend now. I'll link her YouTube and Insta in the description box. And what a long intro! Let's finally start with the video so I can show you my wonderful little girl. First, a little protection so she won't get any scratches, and ta-da! Here she is! She's a junior Iplehouse doll named Cordelia, in white skin with a new body and a small bust. When I bought her, I actually had different plans for her that changed while waiting for her, so I wasn't sure anymore if the skin color and body type were the right choice. But the moment I unboxed her, I fell head over heels for her and was sure that my choice was perfect for the new plan I had in mind. If you're one of my patrons, you already saw her in my last Patreon exclusive video, where I built a whole room for her and her future family. If you're interested in that, I would be really happy if you consider visiting my page. There are no tiers, so it's completely up to you with how much you want to spend to support me, to see all the videos I uploaded and will upload in the future. But back to the doll! Even though she can already hold some poses, she is strung way too loose, so that's one thing we have to do in this video. However, her sculpting is incredibly beautiful. The details in her face and her delicate hands are so perfect, and I just love everything about her. One reason I got really nervous to not mess her up. The eyes she came with are made out of light plastic. They look quite good, but did not fit the concept I had in mind, so out they went. And then it was time to finally start the custom. The very first thing to do was her wig. I really just have few experience with making wigs, so I wanted to make this before the face up to not ruin anything. To protect the doll, I covered her head in kitchen foil and placed some elastic fabric on top that I secured with rubber bands. I really gave my best to remove any wrinkles, so the wig cap would lay flat on the head when finished and covered everything with a few layers of glue. When everything was dry, I removed the cap from the doll and cut all the excess fabric. One last test if it really fits. Looks good to me! For the hair, I wanted to try something new this time. Normally I always work with yarn, but this time I bought some heat-resistant fiber a while ago that I wanted to try out. The color was not exactly what I imagined, so I dyed the roots with my red dye more colors. These synthetic fibers took the dye so well that it was really easy to create a smooth and beautiful gradient. And the fiber stayed soft without any melting or such. I was really happy, to be honest. To protect the doll, I wrapped her again in kitchen foil before I started gluing the wefts on the wig cap. First I tried to use the same glue I used for the cap, but the wefts were too stubborn to hold, so I had to use my hot glue gun. I just layered the wefts and made my way around the head to the top. And then the partner came. I really had no idea how to do that. And also research was not helping. These fibers were not so easy to bend like yarn, so there was no option for me to flip them over. Moreover, due to the fact I used hot glue, boiling water was no option either. And with a flat iron, I was not able to get the results I wanted. The part line turned out so bad that I don't even want to show it to you. Luckily I had some more wefts left over to try it again. I cut out the horrible part line to have something like this. And don't get me wrong, the rest of the wig looked pretty good in my opinion, so I did not want to throw it away completely. As for the new part line, I glued a piece of fabric in the wig to close the hole first. When that was dry, I made a slit inside to be able to push some wefts through and attach them from the inside. Now I had 2 wefts inside facing each other. I took one of them out and soldered the other one strand by strand to the first one, to have them interlace with one another. That way I was able to create a much better part line, even though it still looks, well, not perfect at all. I now watched Dolllynx's video where she made a sewn wig for her axolotl girl, and I really think this is the best way to handle this material. Sadly, I ran out of fiber, so I have to order more and make another wig. But for this video, that's the result. Like I said, not perfect. Even after some styling with a hot knife. However, I was very satisfied with the quality of these fibers and enjoyed the look of them. For all of you interested in this material, I bought it from an Etsy store named PRODOLLS. Link is in the description. Mine's the shorter hair length of both options in the color light lilac. So now that we have a wig, we can finally start with the doll itself. To improve her posability, I wanted to restring and suede hair. Suge? I don't know. Because of my intense lack of experience, I needed the help of my friend LENA again. Lucky me, she made a video about that exact topic that I watched. I'll link it in the description for you guys. First thing to do was of course to take the doll apart. Even though the basic idea behind the stringing is always the same, there are slight differences between different producers, so it's always a good idea to film yourself or take photos to be able to reassemble your doll correctly. I also laid down the pieces in the right order to have less difficulties later. Now it was time for the hot glue that I placed in some cardboard and spread inside the joints to have a thin layer on the resin. This subtle rubber-like texture helps the resin to stay in place. Some dolls need this, some dolls are constructed so perfectly that there's no need for sueding. Or maybe it's a different resin, I really don't know. For me personally, it was quite a struggle to get the plastic spread even and thin enough. I always checked in between if the joints still fit, and I had to redo it several times. It really looks easier than it is. But in the end, I did it. And then it was time for some color. Since it's nearly impossible to prevent the paint from scratching off if you pose your doll or change clothes or something, I decided that I wanted to keep the body blushing very minimal. So I only took the torso, hands and feet for some subtle treatment. When it came to the sealant, I chose to not use Mr. Super Clear this time, but my airbrush with Liquitex matte varnish and matte medium instead. To create a surface where the colors would hold on to, I sprayed all the pieces with several thin layers of a mixture of water and Liquitex matte medium. All the pieces were drying on my laundry rack. After drying, it was time for some paint. Like I said, I only blushed the pieces very subtle, so any potential scratches would stay pretty invisible. Hopefully. I only used my Rembrandt soft pastels for the blushing and some gouache paint for her nails. Yes, I choose a very dark nail color. It's not pure black, but a very dark brown mixed with lilac. When the paint was dry, I took my micro glitter powder to give her nails some extra shine. It looks incredibly beautiful in my opinion. To secure all the colors on the resin pieces, I sprayed everything with Liquitex matte varnish. That made the micro glitter on the nails a little, well, disappear. So I gave them another layer and secured it with Liquitex high gloss varnish. Her toenails also got some gloss, even though they don't have that fancy nail polish. Before we move on to the head, there was one more thing I wanted to add to her body. Tattoos! But since I'm not a tattoo artist and wanted this doll to be as perfect as possible for me, I thought of another way. A while ago I bought these nail art stickers that I now wanted to transfer on her body. In theory it should work, since the resin is also a hard surface on which the nail tattoo can be transferred. I wasn't able to find anyone who did this before as doll tattoos, so I had no tutorial and just improvised. First I cut out the tattoo I wanted to have, removed the plastic foil on top, and placed it face down on the doll. After that I sprayed it with water and tried to let the paper soak it up. Waiting, and slowly pushing away the paper. Ah, it worked! I was so happy! After that success, there was no stopping and I gave her a few more tattoos. I also discovered that you can loosen up the tattoo again with water and replace them really carefully. That of course only works before any kind of sealant. Speaking of sealant, when I was happy with the result, I secured everything with a few layers of Liquitex matte varnish again. And now we finally move on to the face. I was so nervous because I felt like I have to succeed because of all my practice on fashion dolls. But let me tell you, it's such a different experience when you color on resin. I also used a lot more layers of sealant in between, just to save my progress. So yeah, I started with some soft blushing with my pastels to give the face a little more depth. When I checked my camera while filming, it wasn't even noticeable, but now I see that it is, luckily. I also went straight in with black gouache paint for her eyeliner. For this whole custom I did not use any acrylic paints on the doll, because you can't remove them so easily. Gouache can be reactivated with water once dry, so you can always correct mistakes before a new layer of sealant. Like you can see here. Some paint is on the wrong spot, so I took a wet Q-tip and wiped it away. I also used the same dark color that I used on her nails for her lips. I really like dark lipstick, even though it looks terrible on myself. So that's something for my dolls only. I let that dry and secured everything with a new layer of sealant. Again, the mixture of water and Liquitex matte medium. If you use matte varnish at this point, your colors will be secured, yes, but you will not be able to draw so easily, since varnish is not a surface for drawing, but for protection. So the medium it is. For the second layer, I intensified her lipstick and made her eyeliner thicker. It really was a struggle to get them even, and it took me quite some time, but again, gouache paints were a lifesaver for me at this point. When I was happy with the eyes, I switched back to my pastels and gave the face some more blushing. First around the nose to bring out the shape a little more, and then around the eyes. After that, I blushed some white and lilac pastels on the dark lips to give them more dimension. I already knew that this would take a few more layers, since building up color on a dark background takes a while, but I was sold on that look. One more layer of sealant, one more round of intensifying the blushing, and I started working a little more on the eyes. First a light sketch of the lid fold with watercolor pencils and the first round of eyeshadow. To match the lipstick, I chose some soft lilac as a base and darkened the outer corner with dark browns and blacks. I really am a noob when it comes to makeup, so I looked up some pictures for inspiration and combined different looks. Again, this took quite a while, going back and forth with dark and light colors to somehow get near the look I wanted. However, I really have to say how much I enjoyed to work on such a realistic face sculpt. I guess I can say that this was the most fun I ever had with a face up. When I was happy with the eyeshadow, I took my dark brown watercolor pencil and carefully sketched some lower lashes. After that, I darkened the color of the roots with a black pencil, which worked surprisingly well. I was and still am so proud. But then the scariest part came, the eyebrows. Everything went so well, and I was even more scared to mess up, since eyebrows are always the hardest part for me to draw. But I took my time. First, some blushing with pastels to have the position right. Then a layer of safety sealant and some hairlines with a watercolor pencil. And then my camera died, so that's all for the face up. But it's not too bad, since you saw all the important parts. Here you can see the result again. Her brows are the worst part of it, but still not that bad, I guess. To finish it all up, I also glued some lashes on her eye holes with PVA glue. I always let them dry first before trimming them, so that's not the final look. While the glue was drying, I was working on her eyes. Like I said, her factory ones did not fit the concept I had in mind, and I really enjoy eye making way too much to just use the ones she came with. Here you can see the base I already prepared. The resin is more yellow than usual since it's originally resin for a 3D printer, but I thought real eyes aren't white either, so that's a good fit. Moreover, I choose these smaller irises to hopefully receive a more adultish look. It's just a matter of personal preference which ones you use, but the size of the iris can really change a face. Just try it out on your doll if you have one, and you'll see how different the face looks with a different iris size. For my girl, I chose a brown base color. I imagined her to have natural dark blonde hair that she dyes in fantasy colors, so brown eyes seem fitting. It's pretty difficult to get some details in these small eyes, but I mixed different browns inside and added some gold micro glitter in the end, for some extra shine before putting clear UV resin on top. So now we have the face with the trimmed lashes and the eyes. Since BJDs have these real eye sockets inside their heads, it's very easy to insert the eyes. You just need a little bit of eye putty and put them in. There's no chance of placing them wrong, and they kinda hold in place just by themselves already. So yeah, here we have our finished head. Well, nearly finished. I got pretty confident, so I thought, hey, I can make a few touch-ups to give her some more expression. Don't be like me. The face is done when you add the lashes. But I dabbed on some sealant with a sponge and started painting again. It was pretty risky, since I was no longer able to use my airbrush without ruining the lashes, so I dabbed everything on with a sponge. Pretty not so smart, because you remember gouache can be reactivated with water or liquids in general. Sealant is liquid. Lucky me, everything turned out fine, and I like her face even more now with this subtle smirk and thicker eyebrows. But yeah, it probably wasn't the best decision for a first try on working on a BJD ever. Anyway, now it was time to bring her back together. For that, I switched to the floor and laid all the pieces on a very soft blanket. Then I started stringing her again. If you want some more information on that, I consider again watching Kosomolsky Doll's tutorial like I did while doing this. This was the first time for me restringing a BJD, and I had to do it again off camera because she turned out too loose, but it was a funny experience, that's for sure. I just did one piece after the other, always switching between the sides, so the knot of the elastic would stay in the middle. Something I often hear is that it's a little difficult to restring when you're alone, but I actually had no problems with that. I guess it's because I used my feet to hold the pieces in place and had both hands free to connect the tiny hooks on the hands and feet to the elastic. Just wear very soft and plushy socks and work on a soft surface. I had no problems with paint chipping off. All the tattoos are safe and I was happy. When she was back together, I also tried out something I learned from LENA. Adding wire to the joints for more stability. It worked really good, even though I used the wrong wire. I quickly realized that it stained the doll, so I removed it again, cleaned the resin and used a different wire. But always place some hot glue drops on the end to not scratch the doll from the inside, of course. I now also learned that Iplehouse dolls, so the one I have, are not the best posers. Many dolls can stand on one leg without support when strung correctly, but Iplehouse does not seem to be one of them, since they have really weak ankle joints. For me that's not bad, I just love her sculpt, and as long as my girl can hold basic poses, I'm fine. Now the last part of this customization, an outfit. I was really motivated and already had an outfit in mind I wanted to make, but quickly realized that my skills were too low for that. First I thought I could just wing it. Then I searched for patterns, which is quite difficult for these types of dolls. Most patterns out there are for minifees, which are way smaller than Iplehouse girls. I tried to adapt patterns. I found patterns for Iplehouse old body girls. I tried to make my own patterns with measurements and such. Nothing worked. For example, here's one shirt I made with one of the Iplehouse old body patterns, which turned out way too small. Don't know if I messed up or if the pattern is just not right. At some point I got frustrated like crazy and took a day off. After that break I came back and kinda sewed the pieces directly on the doll. Like I cut them way too big, tried it on the doll and pinned it where it was necessary to sew. With that method I came up with this outfit. Not the best, but good for me. I even improvised this hood that also fits with her wig on, which made me a little proud. I will definitely make her more outfits in the future, but for now she has to live with that. But yeah, that means she's done! Oh, what can I say? I love her to pieces, and I'm so proud that she actually turned out the way I imagined her. Her name will be Cordelia, which is a little not so creative since her factory name is Cordelia. But I never heard it before and I loved it since the very first moment. Cordelia of course has a story that even takes place in my doll universe. I have the feeling that it really gets time for me to make an explanation video about that word. Quick overview for all of you who have no idea what I'm talking about. Most of my dolls live in a world that I created with two sides separated by a magic wall. On one side live the humans, and on the other side different magic beings with special abilities. The wall can only be crossed by those of a pure heart and without bad intentions, so both sides stay separated most of the time. Cordelia lives on the human side, called Ebon. Ebon has 5 main kingdoms or administrative zones, however you want to call it. The smallest of them has its capital directly at the wall, and it's the only city where humans and magic beings live side by side. There's also a university where even half beings are welcome. Some parts of the city are pretty crowded and not the safest place to stay, so the rent is cheap. This is where Cordelia lives with her twin brother and one more roommate in a small apartment. Even though she's really confident and pretty chill with strangers, her roommate Asa is more of a naive, too friendly girl that needs to be protected. At least that's what Cordelia thinks. Her twin brother Aaron is a model and most of the time in other kingdoms to push his career, without much success, so they have to rent this cheap apartment. It's something Aaron is not really happy about, but Asa and Cordelia do enjoy their small living space. Their living room is the small doorroom I created in my wardrobe, by the way. And that's all for now. As you just heard, there are at least 2 more characters involved in this story, and I can tell you, it's not the last you've seen of my BJD crew. So stay tuned for more BJD videos in the future. They will all be connected at some point. I'm already really excited for everything coming up in the future, and I hope you are too. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your support in general, and a special thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are amazing. Have a wonderful day, my little lynxes. See you soon. Tschüss!